G'day the world, how you going today? We're talking all things sub frequencies, sub bass, the low end theory, bass music focused, that's me, but this will relate to any style of bass heavy dance music or just bass heavy music in general. For those of you that haven't yet really dialed in your low end, you don't really know how to like create cool subs that fit your mix and your style of music. I'm going to be showing a bunch of examples of different types of subs that you can create, and we're also just going to like really demystify the low end a little bit here and like talk about sub frequencies and fundamental frequencies of bass. So tune in, get comfy, and enjoy this little tutorial. So to begin with, just to like pop any bubbles of craziness and like thinking that there's all sorts of crazy varieties for things that you can do to your like low end, all that you exists in the low end of a song is just the sine wave. Like it's a single sine wave in the most fundamental frequency, and no matter how hard you distort the signal or anything like that, like it's, and how gritty and crazy it all gets, that low end, that under the 80 hertz, the thing that is going to get delivered to the sub is still just this fundamental frequency. Depending on how low it is, you might have the second harmonic of the sound. And I'm going to explain a little bit more about harmonics and just this sort of like what's going on in the experience, like in the head and the psychoacoustics realm of experiencing low end. So what I mean by that is I've set up an operator here. It's just sending out a sine wave like that. Usually operator will look like this, and that's a sub frequency right there, right? We've got this sort of sub octave, this low end on the keyboard. It's generally C0 to D1, C1. And if you can't hear that, it's just because your earphones, your phone, or your computer, whatever you're listening to, doesn't have the capability of making this sound. It can't recreate it. And so jumping straight into the psychoacoustic nature of sound, if I increase, if I add some harmonics to this sound, which are basically multiples of the fundamental frequency. So if my frequency here is like, this frequency is 40 hertz. So give or take. And the next one is going to be 80. The next one's going to be 120. The next one's going to be 160. The next one's going to be, it's just, they're just going to keep jumping up in multiples of that. So understanding that, if I add in like the third harmonic, which will be 120 hertz right here. So we could have a little double check if that maths is right. Yep. See, about 120 hertz. Now, if you couldn't hear the sub before, you can definitely hear that hum now. If I dial it back a little bit. Right, and so what happens in the brain, in the experience of sound, is something called the restoration of the fundamental frequency. And what that means is when we experience a noise, say a bass noise, but we can't hear the sub on it. You might be listening to it on your phone. What happens in the brain is the brain will actually recreate that signal and you'll psychoacoustically experience it. And it'll feel like it's there, but you know it's not there, but you'll feel it. You'll kind of have this knowing that that's a low sound, that's low. And that kind of makes you go, oh, wow, that's low. And then that creates the bass face. And so there's this whole like psychology going on with bass music. So if I cut out the low end, just to give you an example, and maybe we'll put this at about like 90, 100 hertz. So this is kind of anything above what a subwoofer is going to be able to recreate. You get some signal up there. So hearing that, I kind of know that it's like, ooh, right? And I know that that's the lowest note, even though these other notes aren't that key. They're not that sound. They're not that frequency, sorry. But I still know that it's this like, boo. And so that's the feeling that I get even from it. So really all you need in the mix of a song is clean low end. But when you're making a clean sub for your mix, you really only need the fundamental frequency if there's already some harmonics in that lower end, or you add in a little bit and then you would mix it in based on how much of the harmonics you want from the other sounds. You kind of got to blend and pick and choose and balance so that they don't all like stack up and muddy the mix too much. And so that's a kind of a harmonic sub here in a way. I've added some harmonics. We can look at it in an oscilloscope as well, and there's a bit more of a psychoacoustic thing going on here when we add harmonics to the sound. So if I take these out, we can see there's no sub because we can't hear it. There you go. So that's our sub, right? So it's nice, clean up and down. And if I start adding harmonics, it's starting to square it out. And the reason it's like starting to look like a square wave is because all a square wave is basically every single one of these odd harmonics. And yeah, little tangent because I've opened up the door. When you clip a sound, when you start to like cut it off using clippers, or you're just pushing the signal too hard and it's clipping, what's happening is it's squaring off, and all that's happening is basically you're adding higher harmonics, but you're only adding the odd harmonics. So a quick example of this is if I grab trusty saturator and turn it into digital clip mode, it's going to work like a clipper. So you can see it's nice and clean. And then if I square it, I'm going to pull back a bit here. Yeah, so you can kind of see it's hitting that ceiling. And what's happening is we're adding all these harmonics to the sound. And that's the same as if I were to draw them in over here. So nothing's actually going on to our low end. Our low end still sounds as good as it did before. Check it out. So if I just cut at that spot there, and I'm just going to jump out of here so you can see. So we've got the low end isolated here with this EQ8. And if I play a note through it, you'll see on this that it's nice and clean. But you can see here, like, we are actually introducing all these harmonics. So it's sort of understanding, like, this sub frequency is always going to be a sine wave, no matter what, no matter how hard you clip it. I can try to boost it even more. I might have to keep an eye on this one. So the distortion that you're hearing now is actually like coming out of the master end of this. We're hitting the maximum capabilities of like whatever quality of audio Ableton is outputting to OBS. But there's a ceiling, like there's a limit. It can't get past that. And if I turn this off and pull this back a bit. So what you're hearing in that grit is all the high frequency information, so all these harmonics. I hope that makes sense for you. If not, shoot me a comment of any parts of that didn't really sit with you. And I'd love to help you understand that one a little bit more. But really just honing in on this fact that the low end is just a sine wave, yo. And then everything else is just helping you perceive that sine wave. And the last little bit, using the M oscilloscope, starting to square out sound. Why is that beneficial? Obviously not going as hard as we just did then, but adding in a little bit of the harmonics here. Wow, hello. There you go. I'm going to boost this one up again just so we can see it. Squaring out the sound increases the perceived volume, because the way we perceive volume and loudness, so the way we perceive loudness is through volume over time. So if a sound is really, if a sound clicks really loud versus a sound that is sustained slightly lower, the sound that's sustained slightly lower is going to be perceived louder because we're hearing it over more time. And so if this is basically showing us what our speakers are going to be doing. So when I hit this, like the speaker is going to be oscillating in this way on these types of cycles. And having the speaker cone out further and moving a little bit faster out as well. Obviously, speakers will be limited in their ability to move out, but it's going to increase the perceived volume, because if I EQ this out and your sub is tuned to like cut off at 150 hertz, that's the shape that the sub's going to do now. So it's going to be trying to move a little bit faster out, and then it's going to sort of hold off as it comes back, and then it's going to whip back. And I can probably try to square this off a little bit more. The other way around this is to actually use the phase of a sub. So this is getting a little bit complicated here. Bear with me. This might go over your head, and that's totally fine. This is a bit more of a like intermediate concept, I guess, is actually shifting the phase of a sound. So if I make this the third, and I'll give it a little bit of this one, third and fifth harmonic, and this one is just the first harmonic. Now I can change the phase. It's probably too loud. And let's move that phase back again. There you go. So now we're getting a bit more of a square, like a bit more symmetrical. There'll be a limit to this as well. There you go. And then I could increase the volume to its maximum, you know, and that's going to kind of feel like a fatter sub. That's going to be more perceivably louder than just having a sine wave by itself in there. And for, I don't know if I went through this before or not, but just to listen to what it's going to sound like on your phone. So maybe I don't like how much of that higher harmonic there is. Right, so that's kind of going to be how it's on the phone. So you're going to feel like on the phone, like, oh yeah, it's got this nice sub to it. Hell yeah. So that's kind of like a harmonic sub for you. You can really go crazy with which harmonic you choose. I would sort of not look at it from then. This is like a really nice, clean sort of square, like they call it the rounded square sub, I guess. It's a rounded square wave. It's just a perfect sort of sub wave. I know that Serum has a preset for that. Either it's like a wave table already or a preset for your rounded square, and that's just a perfect sub. And you would use that underneath your other basses, you know, like I wouldn't have that by itself. I'd have like another bass going on top of it. But if you want a sub that sort of just feels like it's taking up the whole mix, then you start moving into this realm of like gritty subs or buzzy subs. And they're sort of like a mixed thing, but a few different ways that you can get that sort of full spectrum feeling of your sub and make it feel like it's really taking over the mix is by using something called erosion. And really it's just like any type of, this wide and dirty is a really nice preset, and then I would mess around with the frequency. So just off the bat, it gives it that sort of like nice distortion, and we can have a little look at what's going on in here. So that's a fun way to like add some grit to your sub. Another way is using something like overdrive or just distortion in general. But if I chuck on some overdrive in the mix of this, you know, I'm going to do it in the with combination with the other one. So we need to sort of introduce some high frequency information. Sort of gels them together a bit. Another way to get some nice high frequency information is with amps. And there's all these presets, or like modes, I guess. And you can dial it back. With a bit of that wide and dirty. With the overdrive. So that might be like a nice effect. You know, this is going to help your sub really stand out in your mix. You're going to know that it's there because that high frequency information is there. Because high frequency information really grabs your attention in music. It's like the kind of thing that's really in the mind. It's where your attention is, and the rest is kind of more feeling. You got to be careful distorting the low end too much, because what's going to happen is if I pull this EQ behind here, you see that's getting a bit messy in here. And when this second harmonic starts coming into the picture and the third harmonic starts getting close to the height of that first harmonic, you're going to lose a lot of feeling in the low end. So what I could do is like I could EQ that down with this like little notch and bring back the first one. Or like an example of how I would replace the sub with the clean sub is I could like duplicate this, and I'm going to arm both of them, get rid of these, and this one gets its sub cut out, and this one is only sub. So I'm going to flip this over. All right, so now this is we want to get rid of the amp and the overdrive on this one, sorry. Yeah, there we go, that's better, that's better. It's sort of the differences that are happening in this is the click. And there's a click because there's another thing you need to understand in sub frequencies, which I'm glad I actually came across this, is that your subs are going to click when the sound gets cut off abruptly. And I'll show you a little example of this here. So if I just hit a sub note and bounce this guy down to audio. So got this sub wave now. But if I cut it, say here, where this wave is above the 0 line, you're going to hear a click. You heard it starting as well. I might even just do it somewhere a bit closer, so you're going to hear a bunch of clicks here. I'm going to do a few of them. Yeah, so that's clicking because it's going from this down to 0 in an instant. So we've just created this hard square wave. So all of a sudden, every single odd harmonic of this frequency has just been sent out into the mix for a split second. So it's really important to make sure that you're rounding your edges. So something like that is going to round it. So now you'll see if I round these guys down, this is obviously editing audio, and I'll show you how I do this with the MIDI side of things. But if I just round everything down, no clicks versus without those. Yeah, so that's a quick fix that you can do. Is if you're hearing clicking, you don't know how to fix it, bounce it to audio and adjust the curves here, the fades. If they're not visible, you can have them show up in the settings. And if it's happening in your actual MIDI and you want to fix it on that end. So the reason it's happening is if I go from one key to the other key really quickly. Oh, it's a bit hard to recreate now. If I turn the glide off, perhaps it will. Oh, you know what? We've got this nice here. There you go. So that clicking is happening because we're not giving it time to run out the full length of its release. And so if I add a bit of attack to these sounds, so 40 could be nice, that's going to come up a little bit slower. And we've got 50 and this is 600. So if I pull this back versus if it's really fast. And we'll add some on this as well. So you can kind of hear that as I'm playing into this, it's going to start clicking. So it's just something to be cautious of, depending on the sort of pattern that you're going to make in your bass line, you need to create space for the tails. So I'll show you an example of what that looks like. Okay, and then let's just flatten this bad boy down. And so you'll see, we have enough time for the tail here, so that's good. But then this faster pattern is not really enough time for the tail to finish its cycle, and we're getting this sort of hard clipping here. Oh. So these clicks are happening where the cycle hasn't had time to actually get to 0, and it's doing this fast this little notch right here is what's clicking. So yeah, you need to sort of dial in your release times and your attack times to account for this, unless you want the click. But now you know that you're clicking your subs and you might not be wanting that. And sometimes it's actually really audible. Now that you know, you might notice it a bit more. So you're welcome. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Once you know, you know. You can't unknow these things. So yeah, and then fat subs, yo. So let's talk about an 808 kind of thing. We're kind of already there, with these sounds. But if we look at our bad boy big dog sub over here again. Oh, hello. This one. All right, so what we can do is basically just distort the wazoo out of this thing. So add some drive, add some shaper. So we're just adding harmonics here, and then how you distort and how you saturate and which devices you use are going to create this grittiness again, but we're not using the wide and dirty to get that top end. I just want a fat. Ooh, too much. And then we'll cut back a bit of those highs because we're keeping it like a sub, right? So we don't want all these highs. And turn that off. So where you place this EQ will sort of change how bright this sub feels. So it's a pretty loud bad boy sub. And then your classic 808 is going to pitch bend a bit. So we're going to up the amount. We're going to change the amount up to 24. Makes it feel like it's kicking. Pretty badass, yo. Bit of FM. This is super dope. So what I could quickly do to create like a fun like instrument sub that I can mess around with throughout the song and automate, I could do a bit of like, we're going to match the attack here so we can tweak the attack. We'll put the release to macro 2. So we call this one attack. Whoop. Make it all caps, yo, caps. Release. And we want a bit of pitch bend control. We want a bit of decay control so we can control like how fast, but we're going to adjust the amount that thing can move. So the decay, we want like, yeah, something pretty fast, like probably about the same as what the attack is at minimum. And then maybe like, let's see, what I like to do when I'm trying to figure these things out, I accidentally hit random here. I will set like the limit and feel it. So alright, so yeah, if you really want like a super long one, then you can have that. And then I kind of liked having the control of this as well. So I'm going to feel into the limits of this. So off. And then if we put it to the limit of it, I'll bring this all the way down. Let's bring this pitch. Sweet. And then just to like combine some of these things that we've done here already, we'll chuck in the wide and dirty in, and then let's see what we can do with turning these guys on. Oh, we've got the EQ after the fact. All right, so we can add this amount to number 6 and change the frequency to 7, width to 8. So that gives us a lot of control there. And then we'll put this wet dry to 9, and then I'll go add to 10. This one to 11. So that gives you a lot of control here to mess around. We'll open this up a bit. Okay, one more. Just the drive, I reckon. Here, boom. We won't. Oh, yeah, I'll chuck the amp in there as well, just to have it there, if you want it. But just remember that you might want to mess around with that a little bit more. So this is got a lot of control here now for you. Okay. So looking at all of these little things now, we've created like a pretty dope sub rack. And so if I go, I'm just going to kind of put all of these to a color palette so that we can tell what belongs where. Sweet. So now check it out. We got a whole like editable custom sub here. So yeah, there's heaps of potential with this bad boy. Obviously, if you do go through the random route, you need to be careful with how the pitch moves and how the attack and release move. It's going to like kind of really take you away from what a sub is supposed to feel like. Oh, like an 808. I guess this is more like an 808 rack. So boom, 808 rack. Hell yeah. Get that bad boy on my Patreon if you want it. And thanks for tuning in for this long. If you made it this far, I appreciate you. And yeah, stay tuned. Give us a follow, give us a like, let us know how you found it. If there's any questions you had, if you've got any other things you want to know about, I'm here to make videos about that kind of stuff. I'm enjoying sharing this kind of content. And yeah, jump into the Discord. We got this Viberverse community hopping up and brewing, and really excited about it. It's a good place to share tips and tricks and all that jazz. And yeah, stay tuned for more. I'll see you soon.